The sun was still hiding behind the mountains of Cebu when little Amara woke up. The roosters hadn't even started crowing yet, but she was already tying her hair into a loose ponytail, the same way her mother used to before every church service. Outside, the wind whispered softly through the coconut trees, and the faint scent of saltwater drifted in from the sea. In the small bamboo house that she shared with her grandmother, Amara looked at the calendar on the wall. The red circle around Saturday almost glowed in the dim morning light. It was the day of the Pilipinas Got Talent auditions in Cebu City, the day she had been dreaming of for as long as she could remember. Beside the old radio on the table lay her mother's worn-out songbook. Pages were yellowed, and the notes were written in blue ink with tiny doodles in the corners, hearts, stars, and the words, "Sing from your heart, Anak." Her mother had passed away 2 years ago from an illness that left the family broken and quiet. But her voice still lived in the walls of their home, echoing in Amara's memory like the ending notes of a lullaby. Amara had promised herself she would sing again, not just for herself, but for the mother who taught her that every voice, no matter how small, can light up the dark. Her grandmother, Nene Rosa, was already awake when Amara stepped into the kitchen. The smell of coffee filled the air, and the old woman smiled, though her eyes showed worry. "You don't have to go, Apo," she said softly. "It's a long trip. What if they don't let you audition?" Amara shook her head, clutching the small wooden cross that hung from her neck. "Lola," she whispered, "I have to try. Mama always said that music isn't just for the rich or the lucky. It's for those who believe." Nene Rosa sighed, then handed her a small paper bag. Inside were 2 pieces of pandesal and a bottle of water. "Then sing, my little bird," she said. "Sing with your heart." The journey to Cebu City was long and bumpy. Amara sat in the back of a crowded jeepney, her legs barely reaching the floor, her heart beating faster with every mile. When she finally arrived at the audition venue, hundreds of people were already waiting, dancers, magicians, singers, and even a man balancing coconuts on his head. She stood in line quietly, her hands trembling. Her simple dress and old sandals made her feel small among the glittering costumes and loud laughter. But she kept thinking of her mother's words, "Don't compare your light to others. Just shine." When her turn came, the stage lights felt blinding. The judges sat behind a long table, their faces half hidden in the shadows. The crowd murmured, some curious, some doubtful, as the host announced, "Next, we have an 11-year-old girl from Cebu, Miss Amara de la Cruz." A hush fell over the theater. Amara stepped up to the microphone, her voice trembling as she introduced herself. "What will you be singing, Amara?" one of the judges asked. She took a deep breath. "I'll be singing a Disney song. A dream is a wish your heart makes." The crowd smiled, some even clapped politely. But few expected much. After all, she was just a shy little girl from the province. Then, the music began. The first note was soft, almost fragile, like a whisper carried by the wind. But as she sang, something began to change. Her voice, clear, pure, and full of longing, filled the hall with warmth and wonder. Each lyric seemed to float, wrapping around the audience like sunlight breaking through clouds. People stopped scrolling through their phones. The chatter faded. Even the judges leaned forward, their expressions softening. She sang not just the song, but the story within it, about hope, about believing in something even when the world tells you not to. And though she was only 11, her voice carried the weight of love, loss, and courage. By the time she reached the final line, "If you keep on believing, the dream that you wish will come true," her voice quivered, and for a heartbeat, the world seemed to hold its breath. Then came silence, the kind that feels sacred. And in that silence, a sound pierced through, the loud, golden clang of the golden buzzer. Confetti rained from the ceiling like a burst of stars. The audience erupted into cheers, tears streaming down faces. The judges stood, clapping with disbelief and awe. Amara stood frozen, her hands over her mouth, as the host rushed to her side, shouting, "You did it, Amara. You got the golden buzzer." She looked up toward the heavens, whispering through tears, "We did it, Mama." Backstage, the other contestants congratulated her, some genuinely, others out of surprise. But among them was a boy about her age, wearing worn sneakers and holding a small guitar. He smiled shyly and said, "You sang like you believed every word." Amara grinned, still teary-eyed. "Because I do." The boy nodded. "My father says dreams are expensive. But maybe, they're just hard to find." Without thinking, Amara reached into her bag and pulled out the only thing she had, a tiny seashell necklace her mother had given her. She pressed it into his hand. "Then take this. My mama said this shell helps you remember the sound of the sea, and that's where dreams are born." He stared at it, speechless. "But, this looks important." "It is," she said softly. "That's why I'm giving it to you." The boy's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you." Weeks passed, and Amara's performance spread online like wildfire. People across the Philippines, and eventually across the world, shared the video of the little Filipina girl who sang her heart out and earned the golden buzzer. It was watched in classrooms, offices, and even hospital rooms, where people found strength in her trembling yet powerful voice. Messages poured in from everywhere. From mothers who lost children, from children who missed their parents, from strangers who said her song reminded them that kindness still existed. But what no one saw were the quiet moments that followed, the evenings when Amara sat outside her home by the sea, watching the stars and talking to her mother. "Mama," she'd whisper. They listened. Her life began to change. Sponsors reached out, schools offered scholarships, and one day, a letter arrived, an invitation to perform in Manila for a charity concert supporting children's hospitals. It was her biggest stage yet. When she arrived in Manila, bright lights and tall buildings made her dizzy. Everything felt so different from her quiet village. But in the middle of the excitement, she spotted a familiar face backstage, the boy with the guitar. He was tuning his instrument nervously. When he saw her, his eyes widened. "You're here too?" Amara laughed. "Looks like we're both living our dreams." He smiled shyly. "I kept your shell," he said, showing it tied around his guitar strap. "It helped me remember what you said, that dreams are born in the sea." They performed together that night. She sang while he played. The audience wept and cheered, and when the concert ended, donations poured in for the children's hospital. The organizers later announced that the money raised would help build a new wing for pediatric care, and they decided to name it the Dreamers Wing. When Amara heard the news, she cried. Not because of fame or applause, but because her song, the same one her mother used to hum while washing clothes, had somehow healed others. Months later, she returned to Cebu. The sea breeze greeted her like an old friend. Her grandmother stood by the doorway, proud and teary-eyed. "You brought light to so many, Apo," she said. "Your mama would be proud." Amara smiled, looking out at the horizon where the sea met the sky. "Lola," she whispered, "do you think people can hear us when we sing for them in heaven?" Her grandmother nodded. "Of course. Every song that comes from love travels farther than you can imagine." That night, Amara stood barefoot on the sand, the waves brushing her toes. She sang again, not for judges or cameras, but for her mother, for her village, for the little boy who now believed in dreams, and for every person who had ever felt small. Her voice rose over the water, carried by the wind, a song of love, faith, and endless hope. Somewhere in the world, perhaps a stranger heard her melody online and decided not to give up. Maybe a sick child smiled for the first time in weeks. Maybe a mother hummed along with tears in her eyes. Because that's the thing about kindness and courage, they ripple outward, touching lives we'll never meet. Years later, people still talked about that little girl from Cebu, the one who sang a Disney classic and made a whole nation believe again. They called her, the voice of hope. But to Amara, she was still just a girl singing by the sea, holding her mother's songbook close to her heart. And every time someone asked her how it all began, she'd smile and say, "It started with a dream. But it became real because someone believed, not just in me, but in kindness itself." She learned that true talent isn't measured by applause or trophies, but by the way it makes people feel, by the hope it plants in others, by the tears it turns into smiles. In the end, Amara's greatest gift wasn't her voice. It was her heart. And so the story of an 11-year-old Filipina girl from Cebu, who sang a Disney classic and earned the golden buzzer, became more than a viral moment. It became a reminder to the world that even the smallest light can guide others through darkness. Because when you sing from love, when you give without asking, when you believe even when it's hard, that's when dreams truly come true. And somewhere, in the rhythm of the waves, a mother's voice can still be heard whispering, "Sing from your heart, Anak, and the world will listen."